Hello, Mark from Sound Matters here, talking all things vinyl. As always, there is a Fleetwood Mac reissue from VMP that's just come out. The VMP Essentials reissue of the White Album, as dubbed by many fans. The first album, of course, to feature Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. So, definitely a classic album. So I think it's time for another Sound Matters Classic Albums feature. Let's get straight into it. The release of Fleetwood Mac's 1975 self-titled album saw the band move distinctly away from their British blues roots. The introduction of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham represented more than just a change in personnel and lineup. It represented and ushered in a new era for the band that would undoubtedly become iconic. Founded in London by John McVie, Mick Fleetwood and Peter Green in 1967, Fleetwood Mac started as a blues project. In England, the band enjoyed relative success, managing to achieve an unlikely #1 single in 1968 with the instrumental Albatross, alongside a string of top 10 hits with the tracks like Oh Well, Man of the World and The Green Manalishi. The latter of which arguably marks the beginnings of Fleetwood Mac's ambition to become more than just a blues band. Frontman and guitar virtuoso Peter Green was a deeply troubled individual and eventually crashed out of the band in 1970, leaving Fleetwood Mac in somewhat of a state of flux. The official addition of Christine McVie to the band in July 1970 gave a little wind to their sails, but the early 1970s overall would prove to be a very turbulent time for the band, with several lineup changes. Peter Green's bandmate and fellow guitar player Jeremy Spencer initially stepped up to plug the creative gap left by Green, but he too would also leave the band shortly when he mysteriously disappeared in the middle of their 1971 tour. Later, it turned out that he'd joined a religious cult. Spencer was replaced by American guitarist Bob Welch, bringing some stability back to the band. Further disruption, however, was just around the corner, with guitarist and singer Danny Kirwan, who joined the band in 1968, being fired the following year thanks in part to his alcohol-fueled erratic behaviour. Fleetwood brought in Bob Weston and Dave Walker as short-lived replacements for the 1973 album Penguin. Walker was the first to go, staying only for the Penguin album, with Weston leaving after 1973's Mystery to Me. In 1974, Fleetwood Mac made the strategic move from England to California. While in California, they produced the album Heroes Are Hard to Find and embarked on a tour. Following the completion of this tour, guitarist, singer and songwriter Bob Welch departed from the band, bringing an end to the 9th iteration of Fleetwood Mac in a span of just 8 years. Any other band might have taken this as a sign to call it a day, but in a twist of fate, their relocation to California was just about to come into its own. Prior to Welch's departure, Mick Fleetwood met with producer Keith Olsen at Sound City Studios. Olsen pulled up a project he'd been working on by a new duo called Buckingham Nicks, partly to demonstrate his engineering skills. Fleetwood not only bought into Olsen's engineering skills, but he also was taken aback by Lindsey Buckingham's guitar playing, particularly the guitar solo on the track Frozen Love. The track I'm So Afraid on the Fleetwood Mac album perhaps bears the most resemblance to this early spark of inspiration for the band's future direction. Fleetwood was so impressed, he not only hired Olsen, but also invited Buckingham to join the band, who happened to be at Sound City that day. Buckingham agreed, but insisted that he and Nicks were a package deal. Fleetwood accepted Buckingham's condition, setting in motion the classic and longest running lineup of the band, which now featured Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie, John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. Within 3 months, the band had recorded the album Fleetwood Mac. Many of the songs were actually earmarked for what would have been the sophomore Buckingham Nicks album, including Rhiannon, I'm So Afraid and Monday Morning. In addition, the Fleetwood Mac album also features a repurposed version of Crystal from the debut Buckingham Nicks LP. During the recording sessions, Buckingham's creative vision for the band's new direction caused significant tensions between him and John McVie, particularly over the decisions involving bass parts. McVie reminded Buckingham that, and I'll quote, "The band you're in is Fleetwood Mac. I'm the Mac, and I play the bass." In several interviews, including one for the 1997 Classic Albums documentary on Rumours, Buckingham touches on how he and John would often butt heads, stating that, "I came in certainly as the new kid on the block, but I also came in as the new kid who had some ideas. John and I used to butt heads quite a bit in those days, and I think a lot of that was my fault. Some of it certainly was his fault as well, but it just took me a long time to appreciate John's approach." Despite the commercial shift, the blues is not entirely absent from the Fleetwood Mac album, with the welcome addition of the song called World Turning, which was written by Buckingham and Christine McVie, taking inspiration from Peter Green's 1968 track, The World Keeps On Turning. This is a beautiful homage to the band's roots. Though the Fleetwood Mac album is now regarded as a classic, it's easy to forget that by this point the band was still relatively unknown in the US, and subsequently success did not come overnight. The band took to the road and tirelessly promoted the record, showcasing their resolute work ethic. It took over a year of touring for the album to reach the #1 spot in September 1976, following its release on July the 11th, 1975. Fleetwood Mac also triggered 3 top 20 singles, including Over My Head, Rhiannon and Say You Love Me. The release of Rhiannon in particular caused listeners to stand up and take note. Just interrupting this video very briefly to say thank you ever so much for watching. Please do consider giving this video a thumbs up whilst you're here, and check the description of the video where you can support this channel further at no extra cost to you, where you can get money off tons of vinyl gear to feed your vinyl hobby, including record cleaning products, record storage products. There's a whole bunch of stuff down there that you get money off, no extra cost to you. I get a very small commission and it helps to support this channel, and I appreciate your support. Check it out in your own time, but now it's back to the video. The success of 1975's Fleetwood Mac paved the way for 1977's Rumours, and was exactly the fresh start that the band needed after years of turmoil. Commercial success, however, would come with new challenges, least of all the internal relationships between band members that were made additionally complex by the fact that there were 2 couples in the band. There's some merit in the fact that Fleetwood Mac was the 10th album created by the band in their 10th lineup. Maybe we could call this destiny. They managed to accomplish something that's notoriously difficult to do. They melded members from such disparate backgrounds into a style that is cohesive and independent at the same time. No 2 songs sound the same or alike on this album. I guess, don't call it a second act. Don't call it luck. It was simply, obviously, just meant to be. If you're a fan of this album, do check out the new VMP Essentials reissue. It was cut from AAA lacquers by Ryan Smith at Sterling Sound, and it sounds really, really good. I'll pop a link in the description of this video. So that concludes the feature, but it's over to you. Let me know your thoughts and stories and feelings behind this album. Do you love this album? Is it one of your favourites? I'd love to hear why down in the comments below. And if you've got any anecdotal stories about this album, about the production, about the songs, do share it down in the comments below. Did you see any of the live performances back in the day? I'd love to hear from you guys if you've got anything cool to share about this album. If you're new to this channel, please do consider subscribing. I'd love to have you on board my vinyl journey with you guys. But until that next video, do enjoy the music and keep spinning.